Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today's lesson is going to start with pages 416 through 419. And we're going to start with exercise 23. So usually when someone breaks an arm, he or she goes to a doctor. That is expected behavior. Answer the same question about expected behavior for each statement. Circle yes or no. So if you break an arm, you're expected to go to the doctor or to the hospital or to even an emergency clinic. So that's expected behavior. But we're going to show contrast, unexpected behavior, or unexpected results here. So we look at number one. Ron broke his arm, but he didn't go to the doctor. Is that expected behavior? No. Look at number two. Joe went to the doctor because he broke his arm. Is that expected behavior? Yes. Number three. Sue broke her arm, so she went to the doctor. Is that expected behavior? Yes. Number four. Amy broke her arm, nevertheless, she didn't go to the doctor. Is that expected behavior? No. The next one. Despite having a broken arm, Rick didn't go to the doctor. Is that expected behavior? No. And the last one. Jeff broke his arm, therefore, he went to the doctor. Is that expected behavior? Yes. So when we're showing contrast here, ladies and gentlemen, we look at chart 19-7, and it says, all of these sentences have the same meaning. The idea of cold weather is contrasted with the idea of going swimming. Usually, if the weather is cold, one does not go swimming. So going swimming in cold weather is an unexpected result. It is surprising that the speaker went swimming in cold weather. So, if we look at adverb clauses to show unexpected results, using even though, although, and though, remember these three have the same meaning. Even though it was cold, I went swimming. Although it was cold, I went swimming. Though it was cold, I went swimming. Usually, if the weather is cold, you don't go swimming. This is why this is unexpected. And even though, although, and though introduce the adverb clauses that show unexpected result. Now, conjunctions. Conjunctions that show unexpected result, but anyway, but still, yet still. It was cold, but I went swimming anyway. But still, it was cold, but I still went swimming. And yet still. It was cold, yet I still went swimming. Again, the weather being cold, people don't usually go swimming. Okay? But here again, these conjunctions introduce the concept of not going swimming if it's cold. Okay? However, they give you the contrast, the direct opposite. You still went swimming even though it was cold, but I still went swimming. Okay, yet I still went swimming even though it was cold. Okay? Transitions. These transition words will also give us their unexpected result showing contrast. Nevertheless, and it's all one word. It was cold, period. Nevertheless, comma, I went swimming. Nonetheless, it was cold, semicolon. Nonetheless, comma, I went swimming. Now you notice that here we're using a semicolon. Up here we use the period. That's why we capitalize. When you use a period, you capitalize the transition. If you use a semicolon, the transition doesn't need to be capitalized. However, you still need a comma to separate it from the rest of the sentence. And then, however and still. It was cold, period. However, comma, I still went swimming. And these conjunctions show us unexpected result. They show contrast. Okay? I'm sorry, these transitions, not conjunctions. Transitions. Finally, let's look at the last column, prepositions. Despite, in spite of, despite the fact that, and in spite the fact that. I went swimming despite the cold weather. I went swimming in spite of the cold weather. I went swimming despite the fact that the weather was cold, and I went swimming in spite of the fact that the weather was cold. Okay? So here, these prepositions will show us unexpected result or contrast. Again, because the weather was cold, despite that fact, you still went swimming. Okay? So all of these, even though, although, and though, used in adverb clauses, show direct contrast. With conjunctions, but anyway, but still, yet still, they show direct contrast. Nevertheless, nonetheless, however, still, they show unexpected results or contrast. And the prepositions, despite, in spite of, despite the fact that, in spite of the fact that, these prepositions also show unexpected result or contrast. So we go to exercise number 24. Another way to show contrast is to put though at the end of the sentence. It was cold, period. I went swimming, comma, though. The meaning is similar to but. Example, it was cold, comma, but I went swimming. See? However, though is softer than but. This usage is very common in spoken English. So we look at exercise 24. Complete the sentences with inside or outside to make logical statements. Okay? So here, ladies and gentlemen, this is a wedding. Looks like the picture is outside. So, remember, we're going to use inside or outside, okay, to make logical statements. It rained, but we had our wedding outside anyway, because but here uses a conjunction, gives you contrast or unexpected result. Number 2, it rained, so we had our wedding inside. Here the conjunction so gives us expected result. Number 3, it rained, nevertheless, we had our wedding outside, because nevertheless gives you contrast, unexpected result. Number 4, though it rained, we had our wedding outside. Again, though gives us contrast, unexpected result, right here, though. Number 5, even though it rained, we had our wedding outside. Again, even though gives us unexpected result, contrast. Number 6, same thing. Although it rained, we had our wedding outside. So though, even though, and although, these introduce adverb clauses and they give you the unexpected result. Number 7, using the preposition. Despite the fact that it rained, we had our wedding outside. You don't expect to have a wedding outside when it rains. But here, despite the fact that it rained, we had our wedding outside. Again, unexpected result. Number 8. It rained. Therefore, we had our wedding inside. Therefore does not give you unexpected result. Just like so. So number 2 and 8 give you expected results. Numbers 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 give you the unexpected result. Okay? If we look at exercise 25. On exercise 25, complete the sentences with was or wasn't to make logical statements. Okay? Hans worked a 24-hour shift. Nevertheless, unexpected, he was wide awake. Let's do number 2 together. Though he had worked a 24-hour shift, he, again, though gives you an unexpected result, wasn't sleepy. Number 3. Even though he worked a 24-hour shift, he was wide awake. Go ahead and do number 4, 5, 6, and 7. We'll check in a minute. Okay, so even though he had worked a 24-hour shift, he was wide awake. Number 4, Hans blank wide awake, although, here's that adverb clause word that gives us contrast. He had worked a 24-hour shift. So your answer is going to be was. Number 5. He had worked a 24-hour shift, yet, and again here's your conjunction that shows unexpected result. He was wide awake. Number 6. Despite the fact that he had worked a 24-hour shift, Hans blank sleepy. Hans wasn't sleepy, despite the fact. Remember, that's part of the group in the prepositions. That gives you unexpected result. So Hans was not sleepy. And number 7. In spite of working, or in spite of, here we go. In spite of working a 24-hour shift, Hans was wide awake. On exercise 26, okay, now here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to, on part 1, we're going to complete the sentences with but, even though, or nevertheless. Notice the use of punctuation and capitalization. So if you're using a period, that means you're going to use the transition word. If you see a comma, that means you're going to use, in this particular case, either a conjunction or a adverb clause word, okay? Especially if the adverb clause word comes at the beginning of the sentence, you're going to see the comma after the adverb clause. Okay, so let's do number 1A and B together. Bob ate a large dinner. Blank, he is still hungry. Now you notice there's a period here, okay? And there's a comma over here, so you said, okay, I have to use the transition. Bob ate a large dinner. Nevertheless, comma, he is still hungry. Number 2. Bob ate a large dinner, comma, and here, conjunction, but he is still hungry. Letter C. Bob is still hungry, even though he ate a large dinner. This is the main clause, this is the adverb clause, so no commas necessary here. Okay? Go ahead and do number 2 and 3, A through C. We'll check. Remember, we're only using for part A, or part 1, a but, even though, nevertheless. Okay, number 2A. I had a lot of studying to do, comma, but I went to a movie anyway. We're using the conjunction. The comma comes before the conjunction. Letter B. I had a lot of studying to do, period. Nevertheless, comma, I went to a movie. And letter C. Blank, I had a lot of studying to do, I went to a movie. So you notice this is my adverb clause, here's my comma. So you say, even though I had a lot of studying to do, comma, I went to a movie. Number 3. I finished all of my work, blank, I was very sleepy. So you say, I finished all of my work, adverb clause, even though I was very sleepy, no commas necessary. Letter B. I was very sleepy, comma, but I finished all my work anyway. Here we're using the conjunction but. Here's a comma. Okay? And over here we don't use a comma because the adverb clause follows the main clause. Letter C. I was very sleepy, period. Transition. Nevertheless, comma, I finished all of my work. So see here, ladies and gentlemen, the punctuation marks also give you an indication of if you're going to use a conjunction, a transition, okay, or an adverb clause word. Now, if we look at part 2, Complete the sentences with yet, although, or however. Go ahead and do number 4 and 5, A, B, and C. Okay, so in A, 4A, I washed my hands, blank, they are still dirty. Now you notice there's a period here. So you're going to use a transition. I wash my hands, capital H. However, comma, they still look dirty. Letter B. I wash my hands, comma, blank, they still look dirty. So here's the comma. So you say, okay, I wash my hands, yet, conjunction, they still look dirty. Letter C. Blank, I wash my hands, comma, they still look dirty. So it's okay. This is an adverb clause because here's the comma. So you're going to use although. Although I wash my hands, they still look dirty. Number 5. Diana didn't know how to swim. Blank, she jumped into the pool. So here, Diana didn't know how to swim. There's a comma. So we're going to use a conjunction. Yet, she jumped into the pool. Letter B. Blank, Diana didn't know how to swim, comma, she jumped into the pool. So here's my comma. That means that this is my adverb clause. Okay? This is my adverb clause. So you say, although Diana didn't know how to swim, comma, she jumped into the pool. And then letter C. Diana didn't know how to swim, period. Blank, comma, she jumped into the pool. So here's my period, here's my comma. So you say, okay, here we're going to use a transition. So Diana didn't know how to swim, period, capital H. However, comma, she jumped into the pool, period. Exercise 27. Add commas, periods, and capital letters as necessary. Do not add, omit, or change any words. Okay? So here, if we look at number 1, that's already done for us. We're just going to add punctuation and capital letters as necessary. So we look at number 1A. Anna's father gave her some good advice. Nevertheless, she did not follow it. So you notice here, this is a transition. So, okay, Anna's father gave her some good advice, period, capital N. Nevertheless, comma, she did not follow. Letter B. Anna's father gave her some good advice, though she didn't follow it. Okay? Here, there is no change. Okay? Because the adverb clause follows the main clause, so no punctuation is necessary. Letter C. Even though Anna's father gave her some good advice, she didn't follow it. So here, even though, introduces the adverb clause of contrast or an expected result. You don't expect that. So that's the adverb clause is at the beginning, followed by the main clause. So you say, even though Anna's father gave her some good advice, right here, comma, she didn't follow it. Again, even though Anna's father gave her some good advice, comma, she didn't follow it. Then letter D. Anna's father gave her some good advice. She did not follow it. So here, there is no transition, no conjunction, no adverb clause word, no preposition. So here, Anna's father gave her some good advice. Period. That's an independent clause. Followed by another independent clause, capital S. She did not follow it. Then your comma is going to go right here. Comma, however. Again, Anna's father gave her some good advice. Period. Capital S. She did not follow it, comma, however. Period. Because here, the transition is at the end of the sentence, not in the middle. Okay? Number 2. Thomas has been broke for months. I offered him some money, but he refused it. Okay? Now in this one, you're going to say, Thomas has been broke for months. Period. And then, I offered him some money. Period. Capital H. He refused it. Period. Okay? So here, Thomas has been broke for months. Period. I offered him some money. Period. Capital H. He refused it. So here you're only going to add periods and capital letters because we have no transition words. Okay? No conjunctions, no prepositions, no adverb clause words. Do B, C, and D. Okay, letter C. Thomas refused the money although he has been broke for months. And this one, this is right here. This is my adverb clause. It follows the main clause, so no punctuation. Okay? In number C. Thomas has been broke for months. Nevertheless, he refused the money that I offered him. Okay? So here, you say, okay, we have nevertheless. That's a transition word. Thomas has been broke for months, period, capital N. Nevertheless, comma, he refused the money that I offered him. Okay? Letter D. Thomas has been broke for months, yet he still refused the money that I offered him. Here we have a conjunction. So we say, Thomas has been broke for months, comma, yet he still refused the money that I offered him, period. Okay, we're going to skip exercise 28. Let's go to exercise 29. And it says, read the question and the answers. Which answers express direct contrast, meaning the idea that this is the opposite of that. Remember in the example that I gave earlier during the week, Tony is tall while his brother is short, or Tony is tall but his brother is short, or Tony is tall, however, his brother is short, or Tony is tall, on the other hand, his brother is short. So those give you direct contrast, especially when you're comparing two things, okay? So what is the difference between hurricanes and tornadoes? So look at number 1. Hurricanes develop over warm oceans, while tornadoes form over land. If you think that shows direct contrast, circle number 1. If you think it doesn't, don't circle it. Number 2. Hurricanes develop while they are traveling over warm ocean water. Does that show direct contrast? If yes, circle number 2. If not, do not circle it. Number 3. Hurricanes develop over warm oceans, but tornadoes form over land. So does that show direct contrast between a hurricane and a tornado? If yes, circle it. If not, don't circle it. Number 4. Hurricanes develop over warm oceans. However, tornadoes form over land. Does that show direct contrast between a hurricane and a tornado? If yes, circle it. If not, don't circle it. And number 5. Hurricanes develop over warm oceans. On the other hand, tornadoes form over land. Does that show direct contrast between hurricanes and tornadoes? If it does, circle it. If it doesn't, don't circle it. So let's look at each one. Okay? So here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to look at hurricanes develop over warm oceans while tornadoes form over land. We're comparing the development of tornadoes over warm oceans and tornadoes over land. Is that direct contrast? Yes, because a hurricane develops over water and tornado over land. We look at number 2. Hurricanes develop while they are traveling over warm ocean water. That does not show contrast because it just tells us about about hurricanes, that they develop while traveling over warm ocean water. Doesn't say anything about tornadoes. Number 3. Hurricanes develop over warm oceans, but tornadoes form over land. Here, it's telling us that, again, hurricanes develop over oceans, however, but tornadoes form over land. Okay? So yes, number 3, yes. Number 4, hurricanes develop over warm oceans, however, tornadoes form over land. So, again, it's using however to show contrast between a hurricane and a tornado. And finally, hurricanes develop over warm oceans. On the other hand, tornadoes form over land. That is showing us direct contrast. So number 1, 3, 4, and 5 show us direct contrast, which leads us to chart 19.5. All of the sentences have the same meaning. This is the opposite of that. Adverb clauses using while. So while introduces the adverb clauses. Mary is rich while John is poor. Or John is poor, comma, while Mary is rich. You notice here that even though the adverb clause comes after, when you use an adverb clause after the main clause and you're showing direct contrast, you use a comma. Now conjunctions using but. Mary is rich, comma, but John is poor. John is poor, comma, but Mary is rich. And again here, these conjunctions are preceded by a comma. And then transitions, however, and on the other hand. Mary is rich, semicolon, however, comma, John is poor. And John is poor, semicolon, Mary is rich, comma, however. You may use a semicolon. You don't have to capitalize the transition. You can also use a period. On the other hand, Mary is rich, period. John, comma, on the other hand, comma, is poor. And John is poor, period. Mary, comma, on the other hand, is rich. Okay, so all of these show the direct contrast between the person of John and the person of Mary. While Mary has money, John does not. That's a direct contrast between John and Mary. Sometimes a comma precedes a while clause that shows direct contrast. A comma helps clarify that while is being used to express contrast rather than time. The use of a comma in this instance is a stylistic choice by the writer. Okay? So here, this is what it's saying. That you may use that comma because you're making a direct contrast. It's a stylistic choice, but use it just to show the direct contrast. So we go to exercise 30. Okay? In exercise 30, it says, for each sentence, make 2 sentences with the same meaning using however and on the other hand. Punctuate carefully. Write your sentences on a separate piece of paper. So we have to make 1 sentence with however, 1 sentence with on the other hand. So you look at number 1. My grandfather is quite active, while my grandmother is often in bed. So you say, my grandfather is quite active, period, capital H. However, comma, my grandmother is often in bed. Okay? With on the other hand. My grandfather is quite active, period. And then you're going to drop while. And you're going to say, my grandmother, comma, on the other hand, comma, is often in bed. Again, my grandfather is quite active, period, no while. You eliminate while. My grandmother, capital M, my grandmother, comma, on the other hand, comma, is often in bed. Number 2. While my grandmother has a sunny personality, my grandfather is more negative. So you start with eliminating while, and you say, my grandmother has a sunny personality, period. And then, my grandfather, comma, however, comma, is more negative. Again, my grandmother has a certain sunny personality, period, capital M. My grandmother, comma, however, comma, is more, my grandfather, I'm sorry. Let me start over again with that one. While my grandmother has a certain sunny personality, my grandfather is more negative. So you start, my grandmother has a sunny personality, period. You can say, however, comma, my grandfather is more negative, period. Or, my grandmother has a sunny personality, period. And then, capital M, my grandfather, comma, on the other hand, comma, is more negative. Again, let me read that to you. I apologize for the confusion. My grandmother has a sunny personality, period. However, comma, capital H for however, my grandfather is more negative, period. Or, my grandmother has a sunny personality, period. Capital M, my grandfather, comma, on the other hand, comma, is more negative. Go ahead and do number 3. Using however and using on the other hand. Okay. Elderly people in my country usually live with their children, but the elderly in the United States often live by themselves. So you start with, elderly people in my country usually live with their children, period. No but. However, capital H, comma, the elderly in the United States often live by themselves, period. And the other one, elderly people in my country usually live with their children, period. No but. The elderly in the United States, comma, on the other hand, comma, often live by themselves. Let me repeat that one more time. Elderly people in my country usually live with their children, period. Capital H, however, no but, okay? Comma, the elderly in the United States often live by themselves, period. Or, elderly people in my country usually live with their children, period. No but. Capital T, the elderly in the United States, comma, on the other hand, comma, often live by themselves. Okay? Now, exercise 31, it says complete the sentences with your own words. And I'll give you some examples. Number 1 is already done for us. In some countries, people greet each other by shaking hands, while in other countries, people kiss one another on the cheek. That's comparing some countries to other countries. Okay? Look at number 2. In the United States, people often drive on the right-hand side of the road, while people in Japan, people in England drive on the left side of the road, or the left-hand side of the road. In the United States, people drive on the right-hand side of the road, while people in England drive on the left-hand side of the road. Number 3. While in Japan, people must take off their shoes before entering a house, in some countries, people do not remove their shoes. Number 4. In some cultures, it is considered impolite to look directly at another person, while in others it is considered polite, or while in others it is considered a sign of respect. Okay? Now, in exercise 32, we're not going to do exercise 32, but just read the information below about extroverts and introverts. Make several sentences with the words in the list, orally or in writing, using the words but, however, on the other hand, or while. And an extrovert is a person who likes to be, who is not shy, okay? Likes to be heard, likes to be seen. While an introvert is a person who is shy, more quiet, kind of like me. So look at the example here. Introverts like to talk more than listen, while, sorry, I said introverts. Extroverts like to talk more than listen, while introverts like to listen more than talk. And introverts like to listen more than talk, period. Extroverts, comma, however, comma, like to talk more than listen. So see, you can make sentences with this, for this list for extroverts and this list for introverts. You might say, extroverts like to be the center of attention, period. Introverts, on the other hand, are uncomfortable being the center of attention. Or, extroverts like to talk more than listen, period. And then you can say, let's use however, capital H. However, comma, introverts like to listen more than talk. See? So you can do it that way. Now on Monday, I will have the continuation. We will start on pages 420 through, I believe it's going to be 423. Yes. So if you get a chance, go ahead and look at those. And if you heard some music in the background, I apologize. My neighbors are having some yard work done by some gardeners, and they're playing their music extra loud, even though my door and windows are closed. I can still hear it. Thank you, everyone.